it's a confluence of things. And I'll give you two numbers to get us started. At the end of the year, 2021, so about 5.5 months ago, there were 10.9 million open jobs. Today, there are 11.5 million open jobs. And if you compare that to the last normal year, which is 2019, there were 6.7 million open jobs. So the number of open jobs has almost doubled in a short period of time. Meanwhile, the number of people quitting in 2021, 32.5% of the workforce voluntarily quit their jobs. Year to date annualized, it's 34.5% are voluntarily quitting their jobs. So all the numbers are going the wrong way. And there are many reasons for this, but I'll give you a few. A really big one is that the birth rate in the United States has fallen for 70 years, 70. If you look at the birth rate for 2021, it's not only the lowest in the history of our nation, but it's significantly below the replacement rate of 2.3, which means that we're in the direction of Japan, where our population will recede, will go down instead of up if this continues. Now, demographers knew this, and they knew coming into 2020, this current decade, that the combination of baby boomers leaving and new workers coming in created a very small increase in workers, but the increase in workers, Matt, this is hard to grasp, is the smallest in history, except after the Civil War, when 600,000 men were killed and they couldn't go back to their farms and have babies. So if you're a little kid in 1870, 1880, there weren't a lot of little kids. So if you take that historic period away, this is the lowest potential of new workers coming into the workforce. So demographers knew that. They also knew that baby boomers stay an average of 8 years and 3 months with their company, but millennials 2.9 years, Gen X 2.3. So they also knew that young workers were less loyal. And by the way, those two groups, millennials and Gen Z, represent 51% of the current workforce. So we can't work around them anymore. They own us. So you take those two chunks, but then you say, what did the pandemic do? Well, it caused over 2 million people to retire earlier than anybody predicted. So they're gone. It caused over 2 million parents, mostly moms, to stay home with their kids because their kids couldn't go to school. And the number of people who are now homeschooling has rocketed up because a lot of those moms haven't come back. The pandemic caused 1 million people to die prematurely, many of whom would have been in the workforce. But it also caused many people to become entrepreneurs. And the data on how many people since the pandemic have registered for a business license is mind-blowing when you see the peaks on the charts. But that's just people who needed a license to start their business. That's not Uber drivers, dog sitters, and everybody else. And so all of this just says, and the Wall Street Journal printed a study that said 22 of 52 economists predicted this will never get better. Time magazine published a study that said this is just the beginning of the Great Resignation for young workers. And then an economic think tank about a month ago said, and this is mind-blowing to me, they said there will not be enough workers to sustain the current economy unless we open the doors to massive immigration. Imagine our politicians chewing on that one. Right. And they said that we keep thinking the biggest economic issues in this country are supply chain and inflation, but they're both caused by not having enough workers. Two people profiles come to mind. The Wall Street Journal told the story of a 40-ish-year-old man who worked in healthcare, who said, during the pandemic, I decided my highest value was taking my daughters to soccer practice. No job will let me do that. He's now a consultant, self-employed. And the other profile that always comes to mind is you go to a restaurant, you're waiting for a table, you see empty tables, but you can't have those tables because they don't have enough servers. And in 2019, being a server seemed like a pretty good job. But when you were fired, you took courses online, you drove for Uber, you dog sat, you did something else. And when the restaurant called you back a year later, you said, no more weekends, no more holidays, no more midnights. And so many workers have left corporate America and they're saying, I'll shower when I want, I'll dress when I want, I'll work when I want.
Mm.
It's a mess. There's no sign it's going to improve, which makes employee retention much more important than ever.
Right. It makes being able to attract and then retain talented individuals a competitive advantage. It's more important than ever before, based on what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. You've got, and there's so much data that people are also not firing anyone. So they're holding on to anybody they can because they know how hard it is to find other people when there's 11.5 million open jobs and the numbers going up instead of down.